Spanning the globe, you are listening to the BlahCade Podcast. Wait a second. No, let me try that again. You are listening to the BlahCade Podcast. I am your host, Chris Freebus, a.k.a. Shut Your Trap. Joining me, as always, Jared Morgan, halfway across the world.
That's right, in Studio North Lakes this morning because I slept in. Because this is Monday. It is actually Monday today. We're a little bit late doing the podcast. And because the whole family's been sick this weekend, including me, as you can probably hear. So, yeah, it's been a fun weekend.
But we were not going to let Jared off the hook because, damn it, this is our 100th podcast.
Yeah, we made it. We got to the ton.
Unbelievable. That's right. Yeah. The BlahCade Podcast, that little podcast about pinball, snacks, and movies, but mostly pinball, has reached 100.
Yes, we have. Do we get a letter from the Queen?
Yeah, we don't celebrate no royalty over here, not unless it's a reality TV royalty. But
we do in the colonies down here. I would expect a letter from the Queen.
Do you expect to be knighted, Sir Jared of pinball?
Sir Jared of broadcast.
Well, we're gonna start with our normal bout of frivolity because we got to warm up. So let's start with snacks. Guess what this weekend was, Jared?
It's Slurpee Day, isn't it?
Well,
bring your cup.
Bring your own cup Slurpee Day. So that meant bringing in the pitcher and filling that bad boy up, which basically equated to two extra large Slurpees. But for only $1.50, good time.
That's right pretty good. Yeah, I bet you those machines hate that day over there. It's just slop basically for most of the day in the machines.
They've started to get at least smarter about the whole thing because the very first year they did it, they didn't have any restrictions on what kind of cup you could bring in. And
people bought it like pools.
Yeah, the little kiddie pool, meeting pools. It was like, oh hey, thanks for draining the entire Slurpee for everybody else. And then the following year, they dictated that it had to be a certain diameter. Mm-hmm. Well, they've gotten so savvy that now they've got a stand-up, cardboard stand-up with a hole cut out, and basically you have to be able to fit your container through the hole. That's their measuring device. So I'm in there, and this guy comes in, and he's got a water jug. And unfortunately, he didn't think it out too well in that the water jug was too long. So he couldn't fit underneath the spout except for putting it on an angle. And the spout was your typical, narrow water jug spout hole. And so he's sitting there trying every configuration possible, trying to get it so the Slurpee mix actually goes into the container. It was like...
Amateur.
I was sitting there because I was waiting for my flavor to finish freezing because somebody had just come in with a giant pail and filled it up to the brim. So there was nothing left in mine, the flavor that I wanted. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, have you tried using a lid upside down as a funnel? Okay. Have you tried cupping your hand like this? Okay. Have you tried? And I'm like giving all these suggestions, like being the Slurpee sage.
The Slurpee sage. Yes. Have you sacrificed enough Slurpee cups in order to fill up your fill up your vessel there? I don't think you have.
Exactly. But then you had to go and ruin my day because you were like, oh, I can't wait to see the pictures. And I was like, I don't have any pictures.
Mm-hmm. Doing it wrong, man. Although it's the same thing as last year.
Exactly. It's going to be the exact same container.
Yeah. Is anyone smart and they go, oh, so it's a certain diameter. Well, I'll just put an end cap on a bit of PVC pipe and bring that in. A 12-meter long PVC pipe with an end cap on it, saying, hey, look, it fits through the hole. Whatever.
It's perfect. Yeah, they also.
See, that's what I do.
Yeah, I think they actually have a length limit on it too. But yeah, I can imagine making a Slurpee bong or something.
Yeah, Slurpee, totally. Yeah, slam that one.
Ooh, man, would that be a brain freeze?
Oh, you'd have to have this huge diameter pipe basically to suck it up.
Right.
Because there'd be so much of it, you wouldn't be able to drink it fast enough.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted. If they ever do it, which they never will, because Slurpees are so expensive here, eh? A large, which would be like an 16 ounce cup here, would be about $3 Australian.
Holy crap! That's a large.
Yeah, it's a large.
Our small cup is 12 ounces. And then the next size up from that is 22 ounces.
Actually, 12. I'm trying to get my ounces right. It's the same, approximately the same size cup as I get at Costco. As well, yeah. It's 590 milliliters, which is, I don't know what that equates to in imperial, not imperial, in American. But
Google.
yeah, exactly. But I think we actually have the 12-ounce cups here at Costco. So yeah, it's about that size. So they're not big, and they're $3. So
Wow.
I know
What a rip.
we get gouged with Australia tax here.
I guess, man.
Slurpee. It's brutal.
Damn.
Which is why I never had them. Which is why places like McDonald's and Hungry Jack's have a large one for $1. That same size.
Oh, right.
So you basically get, because it's frozen Coke.
Yeah.
Not Pepsi, which I think is the people who make Slurpee.
Nope. It's there are certain flavors at 7-Eleven you will always find. You will always find Coca-Cola. You will always find wild cherry. And then you usually find like a blue raspberry. You'll usually find a pina colada. And then it starts getting into the funky flavors. Occasionally, we get a Pepsi product in there. Like, so sometimes you get a Mountain Dew, frozen Mountain Dew. Oh, those are so yummy. Right now they have...
I've had that before.
Right now they have this funky one called Pepsi Hot.
What?
It's Pepsi with a cinnamon infusion. So when you drink it, it starts off sweet, and then it kind of goes like a Red Hot was mixed in. It's really kind of a trip.
That is bizarre.
Yeah, at first I hated it, and now, of course, I get it all the time.
I can tell you for a fact in Australia that all the Slurpee products are made by PepsiCo. There's no Coke here. Yeah, we got Pepsi in a number of different, like on the soda fountains here. Yeah, heaps. I think KFC here use Pepsi, and it's on Postmix.
Because when I was in Australia, what was that? Almost 15 years ago. I couldn't find a Pepsi product to save my life. It was Coke, Sprite, and Diet Coke, and that was it. And then beer.
Yeah. Now you can get Pepsi everywhere. Yeah, it's really common. Yeah, so there you go.
Interesting. And then
the regional variations, regional variations on Slurpees.
Yes. And then on the movie front, the new Alien movie just opened up, Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
So of course I had to go see that the first showing. I really enjoyed it, but I will say this: if you did not like Prometheus, you're not gonna like Covenant. If you did like Prometheus, you're going to like Covenant even more because it basically answers some gaps. It fills in some gaps. It does a little bit of retconning, you might say. Issues that people had with Prometheus, they kind of went, maybe we'll make an explanation for that, and so they kind of did that. And in some respects, it even makes Alien 3 better because of some of the implications that happen in this. You can infer all the way to Alien 3.
So it sounds like before I even go and consider seeing this movie, I first need to go and rewatch all the Alien series, because I don't think I've actually, you're going to hate me for this, I don't think I've actually ever fully seen an Alien movie from start to finish.
God, I got my claws out right now. I'm going to just shred it to pieces. I
could basically see the the extra mouth coming out of your mouth right now. I'm about to take me.
In order to see this, honestly, all you need to see is Prometheus.
All right, okay, Prometheus, and then I'll be up to date. Okay.
Because it that's the story.
Because I haven't seen that either.
Yeah, no,
I haven't seen that either.
It's continuing the story from Prometheus. The other films, it's more. I mean, you might say that you'll just catch Easter eggs because you're familiar with the other films, but they're by no means required viewing. That's what happens with a prequel, right? And technically, you shouldn't have to watch the others.
Should not technically have to. Yeah.
No. That being said, you need to go watch my favorite movie of all time, which is Aliens.
Yeah, do it for great justice.
Come on.
Yeah.
Watch it with the kids. They'll really love you.
Yeah, my wife won't. Because I'll be going, Mummy, why is there a really big alien in the corner of my room wanting to eat me alive? Yeah.
Why is it that I have not been able to fall asleep for the past 5 days?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it'll probably be me, because it's a disturbing movie. Like it's really plays on the creep factor of a good horror. It's so good. I remember that.
Yeah,
it's so suspenseful, and pretty much everything happens in the last 30 minutes of it.
Well, I was kind of I was messing around with that movie the other day, just seeing if it would play out with my TV converting it to 3D. No, it doesn't. My TV was having my TV was having really spatial problems trying to figure out the algorithm of turning it into 3D.
Because it's all dark. There'd be no ways of
it's dark and pointy things, and anything that catches the light, then the algorithm wants to figure out, apply a depth to that. And so there were things that were spiky for no reason being spiky. Lights on consoles were hovering above the consoles. It was. It wasn't. It didn't translate very well. But what I noticed was it was a full hour and 10 minutes before you saw an alien.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's a big build-up, eh? That's big,
right? I mean, think about it. Yeah. Think about them trying to do that in a movie today.
No way. No.
If you don't see it in the first 5 minutes, people are walking out.
They go, this movie's crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crap. So,
crap.
Anyway, but I'll just say, if you enjoyed Prometheus, you'll enjoy this. If you hated Prometheus, you're just going to be hating this all over again. So, that's
good. That's Chris's pro tip review.
So, hey, why don't we talk about? What are we going to talk about? I don't know. What should we talk about? Oh, I know. Why don't we talk about us doing 100 episodes of podcasting?
Hey, that'll work.
That will work.
Do that.
All right. We first off, before we even go any further, I just want to give a big shout out, big thank you to Gord Lacey. Gord is the one that created the Pinball Arcade Fans website. Gord has turned us into mods. Gord has let us have access to certain areas of the forum so that we can communicate privately with each other, specifically about the podcast. He's really always been there for us, and whatever we've needed, he's provided. And I mean, without him, for a fact, there would be no podcast, because none of us would have met, you might say.
Yeah, absolutely.
We like to give credit to Farsight, because without Farsight, we'd have no subject to talk about in our podcast. I mean, they certainly influenced us talking, but without Gord, there'd be nothing. So
we would never have met. Exactly. That's exactly it. And this is the power of forums, isn't it? Like sometimes, forums can be, they have their challenges sometimes, depending on the forum. But overall, Pinball Arcade Fans is a great community, and full of passionate pinheads. And I think you could, if you delve into some of the less frequented areas of the podcast, less frequent areas of the forum, rather, there's a lot of good stuff to be had in there. And it is easy to make friends if you really want to. So, yeah.
If you want to. If you don't want to make friends, it's really easy to make enemies.
Yeah, it is. And that's when we step in.
Or at least we used to step in. To continue with this very early discussion of the early days of our podcast, why don't we bring in a voice we have not heard in a very long time? That voice would be, if I can unmute him. Hold on, my touchpad is freaking out at the moment.
It's balked.
Yes. Damn it! Unmute.
Clickety click.
I am clicking. Nothing's happening. I muted and then it doesn't want to talk. You're editing the crap out of this, by the way, Jared. Because
I already expect that I'm going to be editing the crap out of this.
Okay, so why is it not unmuting? Jeff, say something so I can.
Have you got a mouse? Have you got a mouse?
I'm clicking on.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Now we go. Okay. Let's try that intro one more time.
Yeah.
So you can use the first part of that intro.
Yeah.
Look who it is, Jared. It's Jeffrey Strong.
It's Mr. Jeffrey.
I gotta admit, boys, this feels a little bit like the prodigal son coming home from a drunken revelry, and
right?
various forays into the never reaching
the netherworld
lands where I've been wondering for the last, I don't know how long it's been since I've been on the show, but it seems like it's been a while.
Oh, it's been a very long while. I'm not even sure exactly how long of a while is, but here's the deal. Jeff was a moderator before Jared and I were ever a moderator. And Jeff also went with me up to, or I met him up there at Farsight on, I think that was the second time I visited.
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah.
It was October, was it 2013?
I believe so. And we went up there to go interview Bobby at Farsight. And it was one of those things where it's like, well, what can we do with this audio? Oh, hey, we can put it on a podcast. But by that point, I think we'd already actually started the podcast.
Yeah, it started out as like just a Q&A with Bobby, right?
Yeah.
It was just like something I was like, hey, let's... Because at first it was just text where we just sent him like 5 questions.
Right. Oh, that's right. And you were doing on the Pinball Arcade fan forum, you were doing Ask Bobby questions.
Mm-hmm. And then we were like, hey, let's just turn this into audio. And I was kind of just doing a solo at first, and then I think because we went up there together, we're like, hey, let's just record this, do an interview up there while we're there.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of just like, and then I think you had the idea, it's like, hey, let's do some banter and stuff like before the interview. It was kind of like, at first it was a little like we were, just kind of getting warmed up. We didn't know what the hell we were doing, basically.
Oh God, did we not know what the hell we were doing?
It's funny, because those first 11 episodes have been lost. When we switched over to the new Shout Engine provider from the old BlahCade thing because of the copyright trademark infringement issue. That's another story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's another story. There was like the first 10 episodes where we had all of us in, and those have been lost to history. They for some reason they didn't export, so which I think in some ways is a good thing.
Yeah, for the best.
They were a little rough.
A little rough. Well, let's talk about how we even got to that point, and that is we used to hang out in the chat room. There was a IRC chat room that Jared, did you start that, or was that also a thing?
That was when I was working at Red Hat, and I was on IRC all the time, and I thought, hey, why don't I just go and set up a chat room on Freenode? And anyone who wants to can join. I put instructions up in the forum of how you could do it, and they would just go in there and chat real time rather than asynchronously on the forum. And it actually took off. There were a few people that joined on a regular occasion there.
Yes.
And most of the time, it was usually Heretic was in there all the time. And then, other people randomly came in. Some of them were a little bit troublesome, and I had to kick ban them. But that was fine. So it was a very lively discussion.
And what it was basically, we would get, there was a group of regulars, and among the regulars, Jeff was definitely one of them. Sean Don Carlos was always in there. Heretic was always in there. Time Lord. We also have Neglectoid and Delta Echo. This guy Skillshot, who later became Fig Jam. That was one of the people that Jared had to give the boot to. But we would all gather, and I mean, we would do things like what we called we'd race, which was we'd all load up Pinball Arcade, and we'd set a timer, and we'd say, go. And then we'd leave the chat room to go play Pinball Arcade for 5 minutes, one specific table. And then we'd come back, and then we'd post our scores. And if you didn't post your scores in under 5 minutes, then you didn't count, you lost. But you had to post your score, and then whoever had the best score, we were like, hooray, that's who won. And that's when we started then firing off emails to Farsight saying, hey, we need an online mode. We need head-to-head.
Yeah.
Which
it really was
all these years later we might actually have happening. It's like coming out of beta. It might be ready for play in a month or two.
That was a lot of fun, eh?
Yes, it was. But then we would also just have these discussions, and a couple of the guys would have tipped back. Mainly that was Heretic and Skillshot, having tipped back a few beers or other substances. And we used to joke that it was like us sitting on bar stools having a chat. And if memory serves me, Heretic was the one that suggested that we should do a podcast of it. And
correct.
Then, for some unknown reason, I got nominated that I would be the moderator of it because I was somehow able to rein in the chaos.
Yeah. Plus, we really thought you had a great radio voice too. I think that was kind of tied everything together.
The funny thing is now you can't get me to shut up.
That was always a problem, though. That was always a problem.
But we started really kind of banding around going, hey, you know what? This is not a bad idea. And we were initially looking at it as a way to get more people to join the chat room. Because at that point, that's all we cared about was, we want people in the chat room. We didn't want it to, we wanted it to be always lively and always busy. And so it was like, hey, why don't we carry some of this attitude forward into a podcast? And so that is why the name of our podcast became known as the BlahCade, because we're like, hey, arcade, and it's like a bar in here, it's everybody sitting back, and we'd heard the term that there was bars that were having pinball machines popping up, and that they were known as BlahCades. Little did we know, and we would find that out around episode 7 or 8. Actually, that BlahCade was a trademarked name owned by a corporation on the East Coast that had actual places called BlahCade. And all of a sudden we had this podcast popping up, and we had Twitter handle, and they sent Gord a lovely letter saying, could you please maybe not use that name? And Gord chimed in and was like, guys, I don't need a lawsuit.
And we went, okay. Yeah, let's change that. They were really good about it, though. Like, they didn't get the heavies on us. They just asked us politely if we wouldn't mind changing. And we went, we had no idea. Yep, just leave it with us. We got this. Hold our beer.
Jeff, what do you remember about those early podcasts?
Oh, they were.
Because you were the one. You were doing all the editing, or you were posting the podcast. You did all the audio and the recording.
It was pretty wild, man. Especially when you had so many voices.
Oh my god!
From an editing perspective, because you had to kind of weed through it and get everybody, to make it sound halfway reasonable, and so you had to do a lot of snipping and trimming, as Jared knows how it goes. But you throw a bunch of voices in there, and it definitely makes it a little more of a handful. But yeah, it was fun though. I know we had a lot of good laughs, a lot of good times, a lot of joking around, and some of those. I know we had one. What was the name of one of our early ones where it was just like so wild and crazy? I forgot.
Well, that would be the infamous episode 3 that featured the quiz. The quiz was us speculating what the next season's tables were going to be, I believe, or what some tables were going to be. And the joke was that me doing my hideous Irish accent to pretend to be Heretic, my response always, my guess, I know, excuse me, now I'm remembering what this thing was. I would read out clues as to what a table would be, and then everybody would take their guesses to what those tables were. And Heretic's answer always was the Addams Family.
Addams Family, yeah.
Because at that point, we didn't think Addams Family was ever going to be a possibility to come into the game.
And it got requested
that's right,
5 million times every day. It was like the number one. Everybody's like, Addams Family, give us Addams Family.
There's literally a new thread every week about requesting Addams Family, Jeff?
Exactly.
It was nuts. It was crazy.
So let's see if I can drum up a little bit of what the Heretic voice for that was. Jared, throw out a really bad clue for what a pinball table might be.
Okay.
Like if you were to describe Creature from the Black Lagoon in hint terms.
In hint terms, it's got hot dogs. It's got 4 rollover lanes. It's got 2 ramps, one of which is a double stacked ramp.
It's the Addams Family.
Nailed it.
To which then our response would be like, well, why is it the Addams Family? Oh, don't you know? It's got those hot dogs. And you know who's always eating the hot dogs? And I don't even know where I'd go from there. I had the whole thing scripted out. It's terrible.
I remember we had to
it was
leaps
terrible
bits in there too, to cut out because he would, go into cursing.
Oh yeah, swear. Yeah. And the best part about that whole thing was Sean Don Carlos was not on board.
He wasn't. He hated it.
He was getting so frustrated with us, and that just made us giggle and laugh, thinking it was just the funniest thing in the world. But that episode was absolute chaos. It was that I remember that one was specifically just chaos.
It was even entitled something like that, like Chaos or I forget,
yeah.
or
Total
Stranger
Chaos or something like that.
Yeah, it was good times. And then we had one. It was called Much Ado About Nothing.
Yeah.
I forgot the joke was there, but that was another good one. I think some of those were really fun, even though they were a little rough around the edges and kind of just fun.
A
little. Yeah.
I tried re-listening to a couple of them before they'd gotten deleted, and I literally was just like cringing. It was uber painful.
Yeah.
And part of that too was you had 8 people we were trying to find a time slot that would be good for those of us in the US, because at that point, Jeff, you were East Coast. No, I take it back. No, you were here on the West Coast by that point.
Yeah, I just moved.
Yeah, but Sean was in Sean and Time Lord. They were both in Central Time, and then Bonzo was in Europe, in Germany, and Jared in Australia.
Delta Echo was East, wasn't he?
Was he East? I thought he was like
Portland, I believe.
Yeah, Portland. No, I think he was West Coast.
Right.
But anyway, what we wound up having was this exceedingly narrow window of when everybody could actually be live.
Yeah.
And we would spend the object
a
was
week.
That we were going to, oh my God.
It would feel like a week
trying to organize a schedule. Yeah, because we would be like, oh, okay, we want to record once a month. Oh, yeah, that's great. Well, it would take about 2 weeks, would you say, Jeff, before you'd actually get posted?
Yeah, I would kind of take my sweet time with the editing process, and it would usually be a little while.
It was hard,
right?
That's why.
So the podcast would just come on air, and then I'd be sitting there typing, "Okay, guys, it's time for another podcast." I'd be like, "What? Did we just it just got posted?" I'm like, "No, we're doing it once a month." Oh, and then it'd be like, we're like, "So when is everybody available?" And yeah, Jared's right. It would take about a week just to try and align everybody's schedule, and try and get it going up. That was brutal. And then we were doing 90-minute shows, I would say.
Sometimes
on average.
Yeah, sometimes on average. And we'd sit there and try and be like, okay, here's what we're going to do in the show. And we'd assign times, which is a joke. But we'd be like, okay, it's going to be 5 minutes or 3 minutes for the intro. And then we'll do another 5 minutes of this. And then we'll have our small segment, which will last 15 minutes, and then we'll have our large segment, which will last maybe 25 minutes. Well, yeah, the small segment would wind up going a half an hour. The large segment would going 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And then Sean, bless his heart, with his Lost in the Zone.
Oh,
the never-ending Lost in the Zone. Yes,
it was like sitting with a professor in class, like going into great depth upon
Well, Sean had an interesting technique. I was hoping Sean would be able to call in today, and who knows, he might still in the time that we're recording this. But Sean had an interesting technique, which was, I'm just going to keep on talking, and I'm never going to take a breath, and that way nobody can ever interrupt me to do anything about what they want to talk about, because I'm just going to continue talking about pinball and how to play pinball and how to best get the biggest score. Because if you can follow what I'm saying, you're going to be able to get these really high scores. But first, what you need to know is how to launch the ball. Now, in order to launch the ball, and he would just go, and you're like, shut, and he would just ignore you if you tried to interrupt.
Yeah. He steamrolled right over you. Yeah,
I gotta say, it was very well done, though. I mean, he covered everything there was to cover.
It was thorough as anything, man.
And people liked it too.
Yeah, they did. They actually did like the Lost in the Zones, and it was because of Sean's knowledge of game rules that made it so good. But from a listening perspective, it was like a wall of sound. And if it was a table you didn't care about, there goes quite literally 45 minutes of the podcast.
Exactly. You just keep fast forwarding it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was pretty hard.
Plus, we had some mic issues with him where he'd often sound kind of like robotish or something. Where
Oh yeah, yeah. He had one of the worst mic setups of all the podcasters there.
When we alerted everybody that we were doing this 100 podcast and kind of sending out the invite for who could come, that was Sean's first thing. I hope my mic will be fine. It was like, dude.
It was almost like listening to a literal android give you the pinball tips,
Yeah.
It was good though.
It was good. So some other things that we had to deal with. Main one was, how are we going to record this thing? How are we going to get everybody into the same environment to have a session? And so I think we initially looked at Skype. I don't know. Did we ever do a session on Skype? Do you guys remember?
Yeah, we did a few on Skype. Yeah, and it was kind of a nightmare to record.
Oh, that's right, because of the conversion for you. It didn't convert easily.
Yeah, I had to jump through some hoops to get it to record. I had to use
you had to do audio pass through and all that sort of crazy stuff.
Virtual audio cables and stuff just to get because to get at the mics, to get my mic to record and everything, it was a little bit of a pain, but it did work.
That's right.
But yeah, it was a bit of a logistical nightmare, but it worked out. It just took me about like a half an hour to set it up in advance.
Yeah, you had to use something like, it was Soundflower or something like that, wasn't it, that you used?
I think it was called VAC, virtual audio cable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd use like 2 or 3 of those just to get it to work. And it was actually good. It was
terrifying when Jeff informed us that he was no longer going to be doing this recording and everything. It was terrifying because we're like, well, how do you do it? And he sent out this email.
This easy 40-step process to actually get the podcast to record.
I tried to be as detailed as possible.
We went, nope.
And that's when Jared was like, there's this thing called Google Hangouts.
Well, we had used Google Hangouts before, but we were having some issues.
It was buggy.
Yeah, we had some major issues.
I think it's come a long way since then.
Oh yeah, it's solid
now.
Yeah. So we used we went back to Hangouts for a little while, and then Jared discovered Blab, which I really liked Blab. And
it was so good.
It was really awesome, really easy for people to log into, to be notified that you're on air, to find your actual podcast. If they just went to Blab. If it was live, it was like, we had strangers logging in all the time. The problem is some of those strangers would want to talk.
There's that one chick, right? She was like, she went on this tirade about men or something like that.
Yes.
And she was terrible.
we're like, you realize all we talk about is pinball. Well, that's your problem. And we're like, okay, we're gonna mute you.
See you later. You're gone.
Yeah, that was really funny getting those random callers in sometimes.
Harry told me one time about where he accidentally had his mic on, and he was rambling along with the show, and he had no idea. And did this all get edited out? Because I went to check the podcast, I was like, I didn't hear any of that. You guys must have
we didn't hear it either. That's the funniest thing. Heretic thinks that because this was only maybe a couple months ago. He joined our podcast live, and whatever his name is in Hangouts, it isn't Heretic. So we had no clue who this person was that popped on until they started writing comments, because we have a group chat, and this is why we always encourage people, hey, if you want to pop in during our podcast, we allow the chat to happen. So if you want to post questions or whatever, it's really good that that it'll help shape our show. Basically, we may not put you on air, but we'll be able to hear that. So he was in the chat section. And all of a sudden we heard like a cough or something, and we're like, oh, hey, your mic is live. And so we cut it. Well, I guess that entire time he had been bashing us or saying snide comments, but we never heard a single one of those. Well, he was mortified, thinking that we'd heard them all. He was strewn throughout the podcast. And we're like, dude, no, seriously. The only thing we ever heard was like a... Exactly. And he doesn't believe us. He does not believe us, and swears up and down. He's like, because we're like, we want to get you on the podcast. We want to, hear you talk. And he's like, oh, nobody's going to be able to understand a word I'm saying. I've got too thick of an accent. And we're like, just let us. That could be the comedy of it. Yeah. And that completely scared him away for months.
So close, but
so close. Yes.
So close.
So we finally, some of the other things that were in the early days, we used to have a private chat room. Jared, do you remember that? The BlahCade.
Yes, that's right.
Private BlahCade.
That's right.
That was because of one of the initial people that was going to join our podcast. Just give a little history here. So of the voices that were always going to be in the podcast, it was myself, Jared, Bonzo, Sean, Jeff, Neglectoid, Time Lord, Delta Echo, and then Heretic always threatened. That's why I always did his fake accent, because we always talked about how Heretic was going to be in the podcast, and then he wasn't. So it was like, well, we got to have something representing him. And then this individual by the name of Skillshot, who was in the initial planning stages of the podcast. He was on all those discussions about what we should do. But it was literally about a week or two before we did our first session that he went on a massive tirade. And he had a habit of going into the chat room and bragging about how awesome he was.
Oh,
and so Jared came up with, well, I don't know if you came up with, but you know of the acronym.
Oh, no.
Why don't you speak it out for us? Because it's better in an Australian accent.
Skillshot got renamed Fig Jam. Now, Fig Jam is an acronym. It's an acronym. It stands for Frack I'm Great, Just Ask Me.
and he would talk about how great he was and how awesome a player was.
His scores were amazing. He is top of the leaderboard. He prepares for days to do the tournaments. Fig Jam, man.
And if you had any issues with him, his immediate response was, "Well, play against me, brah. Play against me. Come on, shut me up that way." And we'd all just be like, "We don't care. Just be quiet."
This isn't we're not playing for pink slips here, mate. It's just, it's just pinball. We're just talking about pinball here, mate. Yeah, he was very.
So I just wanted. I don't want to bash on the guy necessarily, but I do want to give credit that he was there also in the initial stages, at least the planning stages of the podcast.
There was a point at which he was fine, and then he just flipped. I don't know what happened, but he just changed. His personality changed, and it was not for the better. So we had to take action.
Yep. So in November of 2013, we did our first podcast.
Yeah.
That's when it was. Almost, 3.5 years ago, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Time flies. And things were chugging along. And by about episode 7, we started realizing that, hey, maybe we should have an external podcast page. Because we were clogging up the forum. We were using the forum as the hosting site, weren't we?
Yeah, we were.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. And so we decided
and you were using a Mega Upload or something. I think you were using Mega Upload to put the episodes up. People could just download them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we realized that wasn't necessarily being fair to Gord, putting that kind of taxation on him on the site. And plus, what happens if Gord decided to yank it? Because we were like, well, that ain't good. We want to still have our stuff.
Yeah, we want to be independent.
Right. And then we got the notification. And so we had about changing the name. So I found this and I thought it was really funny. We needed a new name for the podcast. And so we started spitballing what those names should be. So I'm going to rattle off some of the suggestions that were put out there. Let's see if you guys think these are funny. So we had Flipped Off, Ballers, Slam Tilt, Center Drain, Pin Fail, Pin Bomb, The Backstop Podcast, Pop Bumpers Podcast, Pin Geeks, Pin Fools, Z Division, Straight Down the Middle. This one came from Bonzo, and you have to realize in his German accent, he wanted it to be PAF cast, so Pinball Arcade Fans Cast, right? But he pronounced it. He goes, "It did sound like Puffcast." We're like, Puffcast? We're not gonna be the Puffcast.
Yeah.
And then Jared in chat found the BlahCade. And then we kind of were like, well, that's not too bad. And Jeff, you came up with Pinbar. Because you were like, well, that's not too far off the mark from BlahCade.
Yeah.
And then the more we kind of let it roll off our tongue, the more we liked BlahCade. And then again, Jared suggested, why don't we shrink that down even more to just BlahCade? And the origin of that basically was because all we do is chat. We go blah, blah, blah. We'd also kind of discuss the fact that, hey, because we talk about various other things, maybe we shouldn't make it so much
about TPA.
That's all about TPA. Or because our initial logo, we actually had the Pinball Arcade in the logo. It was all about pinball. And we were like, well, that's kind of deceptive to do that. But among the discussions with the names, because there were some people like, it doesn't really matter what we call ourselves, and I said, oh, but it does. Can you imagine being called Fluffy Flippers Pinball Jamboree? To which everybody was kind of like, oh, I don't know, that's kind of fun. I like that.
But the BlahCade just had a perfect ring to it, you know.
It did, it did, and it kind of sounded like BarCade, you know, muffled, but I mean, it really captured the essence. So, in episode 9, that was when we officially became the BlahCade.
Now, in retrospect, it probably wasn't the best name to actually go with because, from an SEO perspective, it says nothing about pinball.
Yes, so search engines don't exactly work well for us.
Which is why when I set up the website, which I'm sure you'll be coming up with, I decided to add extra text around it. So it's the BlahCade Digital Pinball Podcast, but it's still called BlahCade.
Yeah.
And I think that has helped a little bit with discoverability.
And when you type in pinball in iTunes, it does pop up. Granted, we're like the 44th podcast that pops up, but at least
no
it pops
one
up.
gives us reviews. That's why.
Yes.
No one reviews the podcast. Even if it was just 5 stars, nice job, guys, that would be great. Or 4 stars, nice job, guys. If it's 1 star, we'll just let you keep on walking. So yeah.
So hey, then, you guys send me a $5. I'll go give you a review. Come on.
All right.
Oh yeah,
cash for comment.
Yes, yes. Wait. Isn't there some user farm in India that we can hire? They give us
probably
right.
Be rolling in the reviews, then, boys.
By October of 2014, we came up with we came up with the logo, and we all agreed on the current logo that we use. And then
which you did,
yeah,
actually,
I did take that. I'll take credit for it. I still wish that somebody that had good knowledge of Adobe Illustrator, that they would come in and actually redesign our logo, or just plain good knowledge of logos. It needs a professional touch.
It's funny you mention that because I actually work with someone who is an absolute gun designer, and she is just so good at making stuff. And I was going to actually ask her. I actually wanted to. I don't feel right doing it for no money because she's that good.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to pay her some money for it, but I would like to actually see if she'd be willing to rework it. So you and I will probably have to talk offline about this, about what we want that logo to do and how we want it to change. But I think there's a possibility she'll do it. She actually does do side hustles, so
I like it.
I reckon it'd be an easy job for her to do, based on the other work I've seen. Like, she's a 3D artist. She's amazing.
Oh.
Yeah, her name's Abby Shannon. She works with me at Ladbrokes, so she's an absolute gun. And
while I like our logo, it's clear that it was not a professionally designed logo.
No, and she could really whip it into shape.
Yeah, you see it all the time with different corporations. You know, throughout the history, you look at their logos; they're constantly changing them, and they retain the feel, but there's something new and fresh about them, and that's what I would love is retain the feel, but give a new, fresh take on it.
And it'd be good too, because it'd mean we could actually go and do a relaunch of the shirt and everything like that.
What? Our t-shirts?
Yeah,
Jeff, I know. Did you buy a t-shirt? Of course you didn't.
Sorry, it's on my list, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's on everybody's list.
Segment here in BlahCade. It's time to go.
See the little hook come out from the side of the stage and pulls me up, you know?
Right. And then I was just kind of looking at further notes. Sean's last broadcast was the 20th episode that we did. That was in June of 2015.
And why was that, Chris?
What, you think it's my fault? No. That was no, because that was when he did his AC/DC Lost in the Zone that I think lasted 45 minutes. It literally was a 45-minute Lost in the Zone. And then the very next podcast, Sean wasn't going to be available, and I think I was frustrated with the length of that podcast, and so I decided to do a Lost in the Zone on Big Shot. Because I could not think of anything more ridiculous of a table that needed a table discussion than Big Shot. And I did my best impersonation of Sean, and Sean was not happy with us.
He decided that it was probably time for him to move away for the podcast after that.
That was specifically where I literally spent 5 minutes on how to launch the ball.
Yeah. And
so
the
if
fact
you
that
want
everything in Big Shot was like, you're going to die. Everything's gonna die. I remember it vividly. It was fantastic.
Sean did used to say that all the time.
Stifling my laughter all the way through.
You went with a particular shot that wasn't going to work well. You would like, and then you're going to die. Your ball will die. So yeah, if you want to hear the amusing thing that probably sent Sean running from our podcast forever, it's I believe episode 21. And then we so Jeff, like I said, I don't know when you bailed from doing this. It just kind of got tiresome for you. I know that it was kind of all the editing and stuff was just like, all right.
Yeah, I was still working quite a bit at that time. I've since kind of slipped into retirement a bit, but yeah, it was just it just got to be a little too much with everything I had going on and my health issues and whatnot. So yeah, I just kind of figured I'd turn the reins over to you guys, and I'm really proud of what you guys have done.
And by that point, we had kind of lost Time Lord, we'd lost Neglectoid, we'd lost Delta Echo. So I mean, it was really down to basically Sean, Jeff, Bonzo, and Jared, and myself.
I don't think I was just going to say, go ahead, sorry. I was just going to say, I don't think I was really playing the game too much at that time either. I think I kind of got a little disillusioned with the current state of it at that time. And I didn't want to be too negative on the show. And so I was kind of just needed a break.
Oh, that's right. Because that's when we instituted 60 Seconds of Rage with Jeff.
Right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Which you could never pull off.
I couldn't really muster it up. I gave it my own college best.
You would get about 20 seconds worth of rage going, and then that would be it. It would be really funny.
Yeah.
I just don't have like the lung power to yell anyway. So
like, true.
Kind of because you would start off all totally hot and bothered. You'd be like, I can't believe what they did, and well, I guess we'll get over
it. Good. That was the good old days, huh?
Oh, and then so then eventually it got to the point where me and Jared were just like, you know what? Waiting a month, we miss too many things. Too many announcements pop up. Too many things happen in the pinball. It feels like we're behind, and we wanted to see if our numbers could increase with the podcast and how many people were listening. And so we came up with the genius idea in September of 2015 to start recording weekly, with the idea that, we'll do short podcasts. They'll only be like a half an hour long. How's that working out for us?
Yeah, never. It is really pretty much an hour every episode now. And that's just because that seems to be how it works. Yeah. Like it just organically goes an hour. So, yeah, whatever.
So, that's... Hey, Jared, I think we have somebody calling in right now.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Editing time. This would be Rob from Farsight.
Yeah, that's right. I'll drop Rob in here. Yeah, so we actually got Flippy Floppy to come in, Jeff, and have a chat.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like Flippy.
Yeah, he's good.
All right, and we'll be coming out of that. Well, that was really cool that he called in.
Yeah, it was awesome. We love Rob.
And I mean, and it goes without saying, we love the guys up at Farsight. We love their work. And, for any amount of complaining that we do about the game, it is so wrapped up in how much we love the game.
Yeah, we do it because we're passionate about it. And that's why we identify bugs and things that we know would make things better. And as Rob says, they know that they know about the bugs. Yeah. And they don't like us telling it, like reminding them. But
it's one of those things too. Prior to Pinball Arcade coming out, I was playing Uncharted 3 nonstop, and I was playing either Guitar Hero or Rock Band or DJ Hero. Those were my go-tos. That's all I played. And then all of a sudden, this game comes out on PS3 for me. I didn't have a phone that could do it yet by that point, but it came out on PS3, and I completely stopped playing those games like cold turkey. I could not get enough of, and we're talking 6 tables. So it was playing, and I wasn't playing Black Hole, and it
was rubbish when it was first released.
It was rubbish, and it was a Theater of Magic and Ripley's and Tales of the Arabian Nights. And then that first table pack, I believe, was Bride of Pinbot and Medieval Madness.
Yes, so not a bad follow-up DLC, really.
Yeah, so I mean, I was just playing the crap out of those.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's why it's, and I always say, if you loved the game back then, you can't help but love the game now because it's vastly improved since when it started. It's just one of those things where, and I think we all kind of come to this point and then you have to move past it, where it's, you think about the potential of the game and you think about, oh, wouldn't it be great if, and then you realize, okay, you know what? I'm asking the game to be something that it isn't. I need to accept the game as it is. And once you reach that kind of point, then you just kind of go into this flow of, this is all good. I like this.
This is fun.
You know? It's kind of like it's kind of like expecting Zen to. Wouldn't it be great if they made a table that was completely real world based and didn't have any animations on it? Well, that ain't Zen.
That's not there. Yeah, that's right. No. They'll never do that.
No.
So yeah, I think people get, because of their passion, they get too tied up in what they think is necessary to make the game better, and the fact is that it's not the priority of the studio. Their job is to preserve pinball. Yeah. And every single table that they have released to date has done that. It's preserved the fact that you can actually play these tables digitally with the sounds and all the lights and everything like that working the way they should, except for maybe some of the scripted tables. Yeah. But you know, they all do exactly that. We've got 80 tables now. That's a pretty amazing arcade to walk into virtually. So yeah,
I have to say, as an outsider looking in, so to speak, now, because I really haven't played the game very much, but I'm really impressed with what I've seen. You know, the bugs they've been fixing and all the work that they've done to polish it up lately. I have to say it's pretty impressive, and the new tables they've been adding have seemed to kind of want to lure me back in a little bit with some of the old school stuff, you know, like Paragon coming and some of the EMs they've added and stuff. So I'll have to give it another whirl sometime. I just have so many games now, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
That distract my attention, so it's hard for me. And having my own pinball machine now in the house, it's like, you know, I can just play that when I want my pinball fix and stuff. So
true.
We're going to talk to you about that in a second. We're going to talk to you about that in a second. But Jared, we got another phone call coming in.
Oh, hey, yeah, we do too.
And this would be Mike, the community manager, doing his little bit. And he was in the car and his phone kept on cutting out. Did you try editing that yet, Jared?
I've done both of them, which is why the podcast was a bit late to go out this week, because number one, we recorded on like Tuesday, and Wednesday and Thursday was just like kid sickness, and it was just a mess. Right. So yeah, I've cut those out and put them into the 100 folder. And I have to say, Rob's was probably the hardest to do because his level was terrible. His audio level was just so low. I had to put like automation in there to try and get his level up. It was bad.
Okay, so we'll come out of that. 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, obviously, talking to Mike in the car, that can pose some issues now and then. But
yeah, it's the joys of being a community manager on the road.
Yes, but we appreciate it all the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, before he called, Jeff, he started to mention pinball. When we first started this, we dreamed of having our own machines.
Yeah, we sure did. And I was kind of lucky as a kid. I grew up, my parents had an old EM that I think we picked up at a yard sale or something, garage sale.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we had that back in the day. And I used to just sit on that, you know, just sit in front of that thing. I'd even like do my homework on it, use it as an actual table, you know. There's like a fixture in our living room. So I was just like constantly, you know, pretty much attached to the thing. It was just like my childhood, basically. So I'd always dreamed of having another one. And, you know, I'd been shopping around on Craigslist for the last few years and moved around a lot. So that makes it really difficult when you're moving across the country. It's not exactly easy to transport a machine across with you. So
no way.
So I figured, you know, I'm finally settled in here in California, and I figured it was a good time to test the market a little bit. And I found a pretty good deal on an old Gottlieb that I really like the wide bodies. You know, there's just so much to shoot for and everything and stuff. So I found a good deal on a Circus, and the guy delivered it and everything. I was like, yeah, I'll pull the trigger on this one, because I've been shopping around, really hadn't seen, you know, too many good deals as far as in my price range, because I didn't want to spend, you know, over like, you know, I was looking at, you know, even $500 or less if I could pull anything off, which is a little tricky. But
so is Circus an actual EM, or is it a solid state?
No, it's a solid state. It's right on the edge, you know.
Right.
80, I think it was.
Okay.
So like very early Gottlieb System 1 sort of thing.
Yep. It's a tank for sure. It's a beast, man. It's the extra wide body, so it's even wider than it.
So it's like practically square.
Yeah, it's pretty gargantuan. But
is it the same era as Genie?
It is the same era as Genie, and what else? There's a couple other ones too. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
It's just such a beautiful era of pinball where
the artwork is just amazing. I guess it's the same guy who did the original Slimer for Ghostbusters back in the day.
Oh wow!
Did that work?
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh
so,
right.
A Chicago guy, used to do a lot of old comic books and stuff. So this was one of his last pins, I guess. So so that's kind of cool just to have a little bit of that history there.
The thing I love about that era of tables is the playfield is so immediate, like it's so close to the glass that you feel like you're right there. It's almost like when, as a kid, if you try and draw a pinball machine, you don't draw any depth into the playfield. It's just like always like things sticking out from the glass.
Right.
Yeah. It reminds me of that. Like that era of table, everything is just there. It's just really nice.
And there's so much going on in the playfield. I mean, almost every time I look at it, I see something new. Like, there's like little giraffes and clowns. There's probably like 20 different clowns scattered around. So there's just so much depth to the actual art too, as well, because everything's kind of layered around. And that was all like, they didn't have Photoshop and stuff back then, so it was all just the dude just went crazy with the playfield. It's really cool, and the back glass as well.
And it's still working pretty well for you?
Yeah, working pretty well. Like I just had the initial maintenance. I get the flippers up to snuff and everything. My roto target's kind of been acting up a little bit.
Oh, it's got a roto in it. Very nice.
Yeah, but it's kind of a bear to deal with as far as repairing it, though, I guess, because there aren't too many
very hard to maintain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy I had working on it, he told me he only knows like maybe one guy who can actually fix those, and you gotta take it out and ship it off to him.
Dude.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of a huge ordeal to get that fixed. So it still scores and everything. It just doesn't always spin completely. So
okay. So it's sticky.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a little hard to get the ball because it's all the way up at the top left of you think about where Genie, where those top left drop targets are, the two flippers up there. That's where the roto target is on this, and it's got a couple flippers up there. They're closer together, but it's a little hard to hit that roto target anyway. So it's not essential to scoring, so to speak. I mean,
it's sort of like a nice feature, but not really.
Yeah, it's a nice feature, but you can still totally enjoy the table without it. So, which is what I've been doing. So yeah, as far as restoring and stuff, I kind of like the old, as far as the cabinet and the back glass and everything. I kind of like the old kind of weathered look to it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of leaving it as is.
Well, that's what I'm discovering is that although I completely appreciate a table that's been blinged out and just looks absolutely, gorgeous, and the corners are so sharp you can cut yourself on them. Totally. I know that I will never pay that much money to have it put into that. So I need to make peace with the player's look and enjoy things that way. So long as they play good, who cares what they look like, right?
Yeah, and the thing is too, like I'm the kind of person when I have something that's totally brand new and kind of mint condition, anytime it gets like a tiny scratch on anything, I'm just like, no, just kind of. So to have this thing like in that shape, I would just be like OCD around it, like, So as it is now, it's like, hey, give it your best, nudge the daylights out of it and everything. So I'm totally cool with the way it is, and I think it just kind of looks like something straight out of the early '80s, which is amazing.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
So I'm very happy with it.
So a few weeks ago, Jared had sent your guys questions that he'd asked you to send in over to Zolt from what are they known as? I always want to say Ask Homework. I know that's not what they are anymore.
They're now called Magic Pixel.
Magic Pixel. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
And in the older podcast when Bonzo was with us, we used to do what do we call it? Something theater.
BlahCade Theater.
BlahCade Theater, that's right. And we would have Bonzo read the responses from Zolt because Zolt didn't feel comfortable enough with his grasp of English to actually do a live interview. So that's why we did the questions and sent them. Yeah. And now they're from I think like Hungary or something of that nature is where Zachary.
I think so.
They make Zacharia. But we always found it funny to have Bonzo reading the responses, so they became German. Well, Bonzo wasn't able to join us today, but we have to read them in German, so I'm going to do a terrible accent once more. So we're going old school. We're bringing in Chris's poor impersonations of a German person doing an impersonation of a Hungarian person.
So what could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go on? So here we go with a little BlahCade theater. I'd love it if we had the music for this, but
I'll have to see if we still do.
Yes,
it might be somewhere.
Here we go. BlahCade theater. Jared will read the questions. I will read the responses.
Okay, so for the first general question, has there been any progress on Tropical, Granada, and Top Hand as future tables for Zaccaria Pinball?
Development of Tropical, Granada, and Top Hands tables have been got stuck because of lacking of materials and information.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Now, how about this? Are there any plans to digitize another company's machines once Zaccaria is complete?
It would be good to digitize pinball machines from other companies, but we rejected this idea because of the expected high license fees.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so here's another question that you can feel free to answer or not, but are we going to get any Jersey Jack pinball games?
Of course we are. If they give us free license, their pinball tables will be released within a week.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, so on to some mobile questions.
Folks, please send your hate mail to blahblahblahcade@gmail.com.
Attention to Chris.
Attention to Chris,
and
yes.
Apologies, Zolt, if you are listening to this after that.
I can't even call this a German accent. It's like, maybe I should do these next ones as an Indian accent and really piss people off.
I feel like I'm watching Hogan's Heroes or something.
It's terrible. We have ways of making you talk.
Okay, for the front of it, I'm going to read these next responses in a faux Australian accent, so Jared could laugh.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so mobile questions now, Zolt. When can we expect an update for the mobile versions?
Yes, that'll be a huge update for them. All the new features and table. Oh my god, that sounds horrible. I'm doing my heretic.
Sounds like heretic.
Okay, we're gonna do these as heretic instead.
Okay, excellent.
Yes. That'll be a huge update for them with all the new features and table Steam version has. Based on your play, you'll be expected to release this update at around August. Of course, some of the new features are required better hardware, so some of the legacy devices will not be supported, such as the iPad 1, iPhone 4, etc.
Yeah, right. Okay, so on mobile, will the remake tables be available on mobile with perhaps a potential update?
Oh, of course. They'll be available as new DLCs. We'll try to keep graphics and object details of PC version as full as possible. This means a mobile version will have almost as beautiful quality as PC version has.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. We're looking forward to that. Okay, well, how about this one? For mobile, will a further mobile update have achievement-based unlocks, a little bit like the bookkeeping functions and hidden tables as they are on Steam?
It'd be great if mobile versions would have the same achievements that PC version has. Oh my god, my wife's yelling at me to stop it. Okay.
Giggling you.
It is terrible. Okay. It's got to be a different voice, though. The main problem is limitation of achievement number on Game Center and Google Play service between 100 and 200. That means we should remove many achievements or develop an achievement system to handle current 2,000 plus achievements.
What's she saying in the background?
She said, am I trying to be Dracula? Okay, I'll do Dracula for this last question.
Oh, man. Oh, dear. Okay, this is the last question, Dracula.
Oh, thank God.
So for console, will Zaccaria Pinball be coming to PS4 or other consoles? And if yes, when should we expect it?
We have taken the first steps to develop. Excuse me, I don't know what I'm doing there. Okay, we have taken the first steps to be developer for specific consoles. Registration procedures are still under consideration by those companies. We will be able to start development of console versions as soon as we have an approval and get development kits. We can't tell you any date now. Thank you. We'd like to thank you and all of our fans for your and their constant support.
Well, thank you very much, Zolt, for actual Zolt, not Chris bad impersonation Zolt. No, for actually taking those questions again and answering them. It's I know from my perspective, it's been really interesting watching how that particular game has evolved and just the amount of stuff they've pumped into that feature. In most cases, without actually asking any more money. So
Yeah.
if you paid for the original mega pack, you just kept on getting tables. It was amazing how they actually did it. So good on you guys for doing that. And I think capturing the Zachariah pinball collection in the way you have is, if it's just for the fact of preserving it for future generations, it's just been amazing. So great work, guys, and keep it up.
We also want to just real quickly say thanks to Jeff. He had to leave. He was getting called away. He spent way more time than we expected him to stay with us.
Yeah,
but just
so thanks heaps for coming, Jeff.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for again everything you did at the start of us doing the podcast, because we had no clue.
I think you, for sure, mate. You really set the pace for us and showed us how to actually produce something that was worthy of actually being uploaded and shared with people. So yeah, thank you. You've definitely set the pace there, mate.
While we're on the thank you kick, I want to give a huge thank you to Mike Levitt, who is the man behind Wizard Amusements, who has sponsored us. Guy, going back almost, I wasn't able to nail down a specific, but I think he was within sometime in the first 10 episodes.
Yeah,
I believe
it's been a long time.
It has been a long time, and he basically was like, "Hey, are you looking for a sponsor?" And we were kind of like, "Yeah, we don't know what we didn't know what any sponsorship entailed at that point." And he makes these custom shooter plunger rods, which are pretty cool if you ever see them in person. And so he just basically offered it, and he was like, "Hey, if you want to be giving these things away, as promotion, that would be cool." And so we took him up on that, and when we started doing for a year and a half the Table of the Week Tournament of the Month, we were giving away shooter rods as prizes.
Yeah,
Mike was more than happy to provide them and send them out and get them going, and so that was really, really cool of him to do that.
I'll tell you what, if I had a pinball machine, I'd totally get one. They look amazing. The amount of work that goes into each one of them, the detail on them is incredible.
Yeah, I'm gonna wind up getting an 8-ball for mine at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's gonna look awesome. Does he have anything for firepower?
No, I asked him. Absolutely nothing for firepower.
It's a bit too generic.
It's
a little bit too generic, really, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And at one point, he was making a xenomorph head. And so I might actually, if he still has those, maybe I'll purchase that and put that on firepower just because, aliens, why not?
You could maybe do the planet. Imagine if you could actually paint up the planet.
Yeah, but what he's really good at is doing these full sculptures.
Like 3D sculptures.
3D sculptures. And so, the ball is just kind of boring. But I mean, what am I going to do on 8-ball Deluxe? You got to have
It's got to be an
8-ball. But for firepower, I'd much rather have something that would be sculpted than the boring planet.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Mike. You're a legend for supporting us for this long, and we really thank you.
We also want to say shout out and thank you to Bobby Lorcher, who is, or was, I should say, until just this week, with Zen. She was their community manager. She had been willing to do interviews with us and got us a little inside with Zen, so that we have a contact point there. But she's been always very kind to us and forthcoming with information too regarding any of the Zen tables.
Absolutely. So yeah, good luck, Bobby, with your future adventures. I know I'll definitely be following along to see what you're up to. So best of luck, and thanks for all you've done for us with the podcast.
We also want to give a huge shout out to Sven, also known as Ksenia. He did just what would have been a monumental task for me. He made it so much easier, and that was he created the software that we used for our tournament of the month. I did 2 tournaments, I believe, where I was just doing it by hand and collating data, and it would take me about 2 hours to get and then post and then have to go back and correct because I would enter something in wrong. and he came up with a spreadsheet that wound up allowing me to do the entire thing in 15 minutes.
I know.
So
incredible.
I would have given up on Table of the Month if it hadn't been for him, because it was just an insane amount of work, and he just made it exceedingly easier, and he did that all for free, and that was really cool. Plus, he's come on the podcast numerous times and chatted with us.
Yeah, good on you, Sven. You're a legend.
We absolutely need to say thank you to Bonzo and to Sean and to Neglectoid and Time Lord Bill and Delta Echo. You guys were all part of those first few podcasts, and although they were rough, they were a hell of a lot of fun to do.
And I think in a lot of ways they were formative for what we actually do today, for sure. So yeah, without that initial influx of ideas and voices and both difficulties and joys, I don't think the podcast would be where it is today without it. So yeah, thank you all for what you've done and what you've contributed.
And ultimately, we need to thank you, the listener. We like to say that we do this even if we didn't have any listeners, but truth be told, it's a lot of fun knowing that we have listeners.
Yeah. The amount of joy we get when somebody tweets back at us or sends us an email and tells us they enjoy the show. Just the other day, we actually got feedback from someone saying that, Farsight should perhaps feature us on their homepage because it was like free publicity for us. And, that sort of stuff. It's great to hear that. It actually makes, it's really good.
Because otherwise, me and Jared would just, have Skype sessions weekly and just talk with each other and not bother recording it. But knowing that I think the biggest, the one moment that I really enjoyed the most out of hearing what the other people listen was when, and you'll have to, maybe you remember which podcast it was that said it, but they mentioned us and they were like, yeah, they actually talked about like movies for 15 minutes. We can never get away with doing that. We have to talk about pinball the entire time.
It was Pinball Podcast. The Pinball Podcast, Don and Jeff from the Pinball Podcast was saying that. Yeah, I guess we could do that. It's like, such is the flexibility of BlahCade.
Yeah, that's right. I love that little sense of jealousy with what we do. We may not do it better, but we get to have fun. Yes, we get to do it different. So, and again, with you, the listeners, you guys have you're willing to go with us on that ride and allow me, because Jared never goes off on a tangent. Allow me to go way off the pinball map and into other strange territory. So. Yes, and as we get this thrown out from the peanut gallery, we have to thank the wives that allow us to step away from the kids for this hour that we do every week. So we can record the session.
100 hours thereabouts of off time.
Now we're going to close out this podcast in the usual way, which is, hey, why don't you go ahead and follow us on Twitter? Follow the main podcast at BlahCade, or you can follow myself at Shut Your Traps. Jared is at Jared Morgs. You do that, you'll get our little asides and notes and what's going on during the week, little comments. If any news drops, we tend to retweet it and pass that along for you. So it's an easy follow. We don't spam you with a ton of junk. Sometimes we go entire weeks without anything, so that happens too. Why don't you go ahead and check out our website? It is BlahCadePinball.com. There you can find all of our past episodes except for those first 10.
Yeah. I was going to say, to interrupt you there, I probably do need to give a shout out to the reason why that website exists. And it's the tooling that I use to actually make that website live. And it's a blogging platform called HubPress. I started using HubPress about 2 years ago and became basically their community documentation person for it. And I now know, I've actually met the developer when I was over in France, and we caught up and had some very nice croissant and pastry over in the park in Paris. And to this day, it's still great to actually work with the guy. And it allows me to quickly get blog posts up and episodes each week, using a format called ASCII doc. It's very quick, it's very lightweight, and it would be a lot harder to produce websites of that quality if I didn't have that tool in my arsenal as the post-production engineer on the podcast. So thank you to Hub Press, and thank you to Anthony, who is the developer on that.
Also, a big thanks for everybody that bought our T-shirt, because that's what is paying for our domain fee.
Yeah, that's right.
To even allow us to have that. So
yeah,
if you wonder why we have the website and why we were selling T-shirts and why we continue to sell T-shirts, that is the reason. You know, we weren't pocketing this for our own gains. It's purely so that we can keep on doing this. So if you find it that you totally enjoy our podcast and get value from this, and you feel like you want to kick something to us, you can either buy the T-shirt, and we'll use money to further years of being able to host this, or you can do as other people have, which is, there's that old PayPal drop, which we're never opposed to, but it'll keep us running for a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right, and it really helps us keep things moving along. And thank you to all those people who have already chipped in a little bit.
Yes. If you want to chip in another way, that is, drop us the email. I mentioned it earlier, but our email is BlahCade@gmail.com. Tell us what you want to hear about on the show. If there's anything that's popped up in your mind, if there's comments that you've had about a past show, we will bring those up absolutely in a future podcast and share, because we're always looking for show ideas. So that's another way that you can contribute, and we love it.
And if you're not in a position to contribute financially or anything like that, you can always leave us a review on iTunes. I know I always say that, but it actually does make a difference in the way the podcast filters on iTunes. So if you haven't yet and you are listening through iTunes for the podcast, it'd be great if you could actually just leave us a really quick review. Doesn't have to be long. It'd be really appreciated if you could.
Okay, and because he's been begging to, and he always begs to be on our podcast, I'm going to let my son join us for this 100th podcast. Come here, buddy, and say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Check out my YouTube channel.
No, don't advertise your YouTube channel. Okay, go away. That's enough of you. Didn't expect him to do that. Jeez.
And the peanut gallery erupts. I love it.
Right? Oh, my gosh.
If you do want to check out Mason's YouTube gallery, go back through the last couple of episodes. There's links. In there for it. So yeah, have fun with that.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, hey, this has been a lot of fun. Really appreciated catching up with Jeff. Next week we will hopefully be talking about Paragon, because it's going to be close to being out of beta, or maybe even being released. I don't know. But hopefully we'll have to get some hands-on on that, which will be exciting, because we haven't been able to talk about digital pinball in some time other than just bug fixes. And that means all those bug fixes will have been put into the game proper. So you guys will actually probably get your hands on these things too.
Yeah, on mobile. I can't wait to try some of these fixes. It's going to be so good. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I've been playing the beta on Android, but I'll reserve my judgment until next week.
Yes, because I haven't got a chance yet. Okay.
No.
With that, we need to say adios, mahalo. Not that I'm Hawaiian or anything, but it felt like saying that. Avirdase. What else? I don't know. Sayonara. Ciao.
And see you later, blokes.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.